super stoked to have him here on board with the top 5 here. We're at Wallworks in good old Bronx, New York. And Chris just got through doing a mural, and we just wanted to sit him down and have him give us his the top 5 people who inspired him the most in the graffiti art and street art world, and still to this day who inspire him. So, Chris, man, thank you for being here first off, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for the invitation.
No, thank you. Thank you for always wanting to, involve me in these things. It's definitely an honor. I appreciate it.
Can't forget where it starts, man. Always got to go back to the beginning and touch the roots, bro.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, Chris, man, being, as big as you have been in the art world and contributing as much as you have and capturing as much art as you did, going around shooting all the 35mm photos of all the graph and posting to the site, and a lot of people don't know that history value, and that's why we did Black Book Diaries, so people know just how important you are to the history of graffiti. And I think being the huge following you have of your loyal fans and supporters, man, I think these people would be fucking real stoked to know who the people are that inspired you. Who was Chris Robots looking at? What made you, who made you want to go out and do this shit, essentially,
I appreciate that. I appreciate the interest in it. It's funny, sometimes when you do stuff for so long, you just kind of think you're the only one who's interested in it anymore, You kind of not sure if people get bored. So it's great to, that there is an interest there. So as far as people who inspired me, it's got to go back to, if we're talking about graffiti, just straight up, graffiti, people like Edge and Verse, my brother, who wrote Nerve, Lev, Sign, these are all Staten Island guys who were doing, pieces in all legal spots. They were doing highways, they were doing everything and anything. They covered all gamuts of graph, from tags to burners to, silver blockbusters under the expressways on Staten Island. So those guys are a huge inspiration, huge influence. And then, it kind of goes into, traveling from Staten Island to Manhattan, you got to see more and more kind of things. There was more exposure to different artists, which was great. So I remember going in and seeing people like MQ, who was just like a straight up bomber, had everything, and going to hardcore and punk shows and seeing his stuff up there. You kind of tie in and realize that he was a graph guy and he was a hardcore guy, which was cool. So that would be another big inspiration, because the stuff he was doing was pretty much, kind of mind-boggling. Just the size of the stuff and
magnitude,
just what he was everywhere, And I love that he changed it up. It wasn't just the letter M and the letter Q. He did M, Q, U, E, M, K, U, E. He always changed it. It wasn't just the standard, which was a big thing in graph in the 90s. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of people love to kind of add in different monikers, like Doctor, like Verse used to do Dr. Verse pieces, and how everybody always had kind of a number back in the day, and then in the 90s it changed it up and they added these different things. So those are two big inspirations. Third, the whole DF crew, Diabolical Funk, whatever you want to call them, Delta Force, that was guys like Sub, Emit, Jive, Cycle, East, all those guys. That whole crew, Cause, that whole crew did amazing stuff, and this is 92, probably 93, going into Manhattan and seeing these parking lots they would do down in Soho, which was right over by Bomb the System, whatever you want to call it, Scrapyard, Soho's that, whatever. So you would go and you'd see these just productions, and you just kind of, it was just in awe. I was just in awe of them. Then to come to find out years later that they were all illegal, that they weren't even, you kind of just assumed they had permission. come to find out that they just like would give like the parking attendant $100, and they would just paint. That was pretty incredible. Another huge inspiration. I mean, when you kind of like transcend, like, when you kind of like walk that line of street art and graffiti, Cost and Revs have to be mentioned. I mean, Cost and Revs took it to a different place. I mean, between, you know, the wheat paste posters, the rollers, the sculptures. I mean, I remember just being so amped to find something new by them. That was a huge inspiration because it took it from just, you know, graffiti, typical, you know, bubble letters, tags, and burners, and all that stuff, and it took like a new element to it. So they would definitely be big mentions. Then I guess for the fifth would be kind of like a huge inspiration would be actually the books that came out, and the books like spray can art and subway art, the ones that inspired, that kind of showed these people. They showed me people like Crash, or you know, Dondi, like guys I wasn't able to see being on Staten Island and being from like a later era. So those are huge inspiration. I remember when I was, I think about 10 or 11 years old, I was sick with the chicken pox, and my dad brought home spray can art and subway art for me. And that was just, I just sat there and, you know, I was in quarantine just looking at those books for hours and hours and hours and just copying stuff. And I mean, I remember there's so many pieces in those that just made you realize that graffiti was more than just tags, and it was just more than just destruction. You know, there was a beauty to it. You know, but there's, you know, when it comes to inspiration, it's crazy because there's other people, because that's a whole nother thing. Like I could talk about inspiration for days, to be honest, because, you know, it kind of almost is in different pockets of my life. You know, in the 90s, like the early 90s was kind of one set of inspiration. The mid and late 90s is another, you know, going to see like the Basquiat movie, you know, and learning about Samo and, you know, and Al Diaz and all these other guys, and knowing that there was like these almost alternate realm kind of graffitis. Because there was another thing is, street art wasn't a term that anybody started using until the mid 2000s. You know, it was always like it was graffiti or not graffiti. Because like when I was, you know, coming up, you know, trying to show my work, people didn't know what to put me in. You know, they just kind of were like, oh, you do graffiti, but it's not graffiti, so there's like no term for it. So it was like kind of in limbo. So seeing stuff like those guys who did, you know, the alternate kind of tools and everything was a huge inspiration. So it's like I say, it's like different pockets in life. And when it comes to street art, I mean, that's a whole nother discussion. I could do a whole
we could do another one with like the street artists that influenced you, and, you know, just actually the regular people, like just as far as like musicians, and because like I'm inspired by musicians, skateboarders, artists, friends of mine. Like I'd have to do multiple.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's why I was like, let's just do the graph side of it, and then we can do the people that inspired you with just in life. Well, yo, Chris, on that note, man, we just want to say thank you for spending the day with us here and letting us come and film you in your element. As always, man, it's such a pleasure and an honor for us just as well, man.
No, thank you. I really appreciate what you guys do.
Thanks, Chris. We appreciate you too, my man, and thanks again. Best of luck in the future, and we'll be checking back on in with you frequently, boss.
You know where to find me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, my man.
Thanks.